Drop that beat.
Dr. Jeffries and the African American African Studies Community Extension Center for extending this opportunity for me to discuss my eBook, which is called Reparations Now for Black African Americans, and here's what we want. So I want to take the opportunity to discuss that and talk a little bit about what we do, what I'm involved in. I wrote the book a couple years ago, and because I was interested in the digital, the book is available through my website as a download for $9.99. I do have additional projects. But I want to start the presentation off by saying reparations in this concept of the ebook there's a dual strategy to this. That reparations, there's a reparations plan, but in terms of the strategy, but there's also a reparations empowerment plan. So even though you're following this process and at some stage it does not or is rejected. The second thing in terms of assumption, there's a joke that sometimes when you talk about reparations, people are interested in their check. Well, I don't know about reparations, I really don't care, but where's my check? Yes, I'm okay with getting a check. This, as I lay this strategy, this is not about an individual check. So I want to be clear about that. The third assumption is that we have to have the Black community buy-in. So this whole process is designed specifically at every level to have Black people participate and say whether they want to move forward to request this officially from the federal government. And the other is the U.S. government approval, because that's where the funding is going to have to come from as we talk about reparations. It was the United government in its forms that condoned the enslavement, participated, created the marketplace for that, and so I want to make sure that there's a process for that as we move. Here's what we want, and I make it clear. We want money as reparations, land, equity, special regulations, and a group self-tax. Part of the challenge is understanding reparations. There have been authors who've explained it very well, but they make it entirely too complicated. That's just one component of that. So I want to be clear, there's no bones about the $10 trillion over 20 years. So this is not an absolute negotiating. You can ask for what you want. Sometimes you may get that much, sometimes you may not, but at least it's clear about what we want. The second request is land. This is land from the federal government. So we're not talking about going out and taking somebody's land who already, this is not a land grab. The government has millions of acres of land that's unused that could be a part of this. Some of it would be used for a number of things, land, farming, businesses, but that $10 trillion that I talked about, we will have enough resources to buy land at fair price to do some of the things that we needed to do. But I thought 1 million acres of land is a starting point both in urban and rural areas. The third is equity. Equity is defined as the difference between assets and liability, and I asked for 13% equity because at the time that was the percentage of the population. So for me, that sounded like a good number. The census may have increased our population to a little bit more. And when I say equity, I'm talking about the things that the government controls, like the cell phone spectrum that they sell to or license out to AT&T, Sprint, all of the cell phone companies. Not only that, but the equity in some of the resources that the Department of Defense and Energy and Interior, the National Wildlife Parks, water, mineral, land. The government owns land that there's gas and oil under that, and they will sell those or lease those rights out to companies at various points in time. And so what we're asking for is a 13% equity stake in that. So whenever you sell it, that's fine. Just know that a percentage of that will support our efforts. The fourth is the special regulations. And what I mean by special regulations is the same type of regulations that the Native Americans receive. The ability to set up, build their own casinos and profit from those. The ability to have special rights during terms of businesses, especially if you're dealing with interstate commerce. The ability to negotiate and provide our products and services, do international business without some of the barriers that are normally imposed upon businesses. The natural resources in terms of being able to take advantage of the resources that we own or we have control of. Also education. There are rules and regulations in terms of education standards, but those special regulations will give us the ability to educate our kids and do some of the things that we know works with our kids, be able to have some flexibility in terms of how we move forward in that process. An exemption from certain federal rules. And there are lots of federal rules that Native Americans have exemption from. They don't have to have a lot of the regulations or the same types of rules. And I left it specific, not specific, but broad, because I think at some point we have to look at some of those and those will be defined. But in terms of special regulations, that's what we would be seeking. The group self-tax is our skin in the game. And this is a voluntary payroll tax that Black African Americans will be asked to participate in. Anyone who chose to support our efforts would be able to do that. And that would amount to $25 a month or $12.50 bi-weekly or $6.25 per week. It's important that we take some responsibility in our own empowerment, and I think this is our ability to, addition to what we're getting from the federal government in terms of reparations, our ability to pool some resources for our own empowerment. Who managed the reparations? This has been one of the big challenges for reparations in terms of they could always ask the question, who's going to manage the money? And you leave folks standing like a deer in headlights, and that's a point of contention. So I thought the best way to create that process is to have a reparations commission. And that would be a 9-member board similar to the Supreme Court. Nominated from specific areas now, and I'll detail that in the next slide, but there will be people with expertise in the specific areas, and those folks will be approved by our Black organizations. The Black organizations are, in terms of well, we have Black businesses, we have Black MBAs organizations, we have doctors and nurses, we have social workers, we have professional organizations that are Black. And so we want to give them the opportunity to have some say in terms of nominating a person for that specific area. And the organizations would get to vote, the 9-member organization would get to vote on those individuals' memberships. And the 9-member reparations would be a limited term, so you wouldn't have a group of folks who would be there forever and a day, that would rotate. Reparations Commission would be made of an individual that has to do with economic development. These would be the institutes, that they would create.
Reparations Commission would oversee these specific 9 institutes.
You would have an institute that deals with economic development. You would have health care. And this is where I say the organization. So when you have the black nurses and black doctors, they would nominate a person from their area who would be a member of the Reparations Commission that covered health. And so the same thing with social work and psychologists. When you have a Black Communities and Social Institute that would deal with some of the social things that are challenged within our community. You would have a Black Financial that would be in charge of setting up banks and financial institutions to ensure that our resources turn over in our community. And they would be the one making loans to the other institutes to create some of the facilities and hire staff to do the things that we need to do. The Black Farmers Institute, so you would have black farmers who would nominate someone who understood Reparations Commission. They would nominate someone who understood what their challenges were. And so you would rely on those kinds of expertise. Same thing from Black Educational Institute would have responsibility to look at what we need. If we need more teachers, if we need schools, if we need technology in our schools, they would be charged with implementing that process across the board. The Legal Institute, where you would have trained lawyers who are conscious and fearless about protecting our rights. So you would never have to worry about going into a court proceeding without legal representation to help you through that process and to advocate at all levels. You would also have folks from each one of these institutes working together in those institutes. The Security Institute, because we know that there are some challenges within our community, so you would have folks working with local law enforcement, but working with community organizations, making sure that we have an opportunity to be safe in our community, and no one can come in and literally, whether it's our own young folks or older folks, destroying the community or acting against norms or laws, those kind of things. So you want to have not for a police state, but someone who is a part of the community and who works with community. So they would identify folks who had need and be someone who could get folks to the other institutes, whether it's job training through education, whether it's social, other institutes, whether it's job training through education, whether it's social services through, or healthcare service or mental health services. So you have an apparatus where security may be able to identify folks with need if they don't know how to access service and get folks to those different areas. The Black Political Institute would be responsible for not only developing a black political party, but also working with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and training our young folks to lead in politics. And so it wouldn't be just one particular party, or we would be engaged in politics from a level of understanding that it is the politicians who determine what is going to be done with our tax dollars. And so you need politicians who have a love for the people, have an understanding about what's fair, what's right, what's just, and who can lead to solve problems and have that as their focus. Sort of an illustration of how the connections. You're going to have the Reparations Commission, which all of the resources come through, and you're going to have all of the institutes. But those institutes are going to operate together as a force, and those institutes are going to be the institutes that interface with Black African Americans and provide the services that they need. And so you won't have one institute operating solely in its own little island. You will have all of these institutes, because to build a facility, economic development, or through financing, if you're going to build a school, if you're going to build a social service center, or any of those things, they have to work together. Example of the farmers. If our farmers are growing food, you're going to have processing plants. You're going to have warehouses. You're going to have the ability to transport that food. You're going to have the ability to have retail stores in the community. And so the Economic Development Institute would work with those other institutes, to ensure that we can not only have those facilities, but we can have dental clinics and health clinics and hospitals that provide services to our folks, regardless of their ability to pay. Because a healthy community is a productive community. And if you're unhealthy because you don't have the ability to afford care, this is what the reparations would be used for. And even though those folks who choose not to participate with the $25 tax, they would still have access to this process, because their ancestors came through that process. And reparations is for Black African Americans. And so we want to make sure that there's not a punitive method that says, well, you can't afford services, therefore we're not going to give you services. That's what the reparations is for. It's to build a community where we begin to take care of each other, and we begin to work together. We begin to identify that we have ideas and innovations and gifts and talents that this process can nurture and develop, from all the way, as an example, in education, all the way from pregnant mothers connecting with health, all the way through pre-K, all the way through 12th grade, and connecting with our HBCUs and UNCF schools to ensure that our kids have a pathway to developing their dreams and their skills that is not based on how much money their parents or grandparents have. And so some kids may want to earn a certificate in carpentry or a degree in carpentry or plumbing. Those kids you don't devalue that. They get an opportunity to pursue that, as well as the scientists who are going to do researches, or the folks who want to teach, or the people who want to pursue their doctorate and higher knowledge and those kind of things. So you want to have a functioning system that literally allows us to take care of each other. The process where you and I would engage in would allow us to join a local Black organization that's been in existence for at least 3 to 5 years. This would do a couple things. It would empower those Black organizations, because you have to pay some dues in order to be a part of that organization. So it would infuse cash into those organizations, but it would bring an opportunity for new ideas into those organizations. While in that organization, they would review the plan and decide, vote for it, and up or down vote whether they wanted to move forward. And it is that one vote from that local organization that they would carry to either their region or a state for a vote. So you would have a tally of, so an example like the NAACP, if the local organization voted for it, then that one vote for it would be pooled on a regional or a state basis, either for or against it, and all the way to the national, where those votes would determine that one vote for it. Once you have that, they would bring that to a Reparations National Conference, where they would be bringing their one vote. Leadership would get there and decide that, now I'm going to vote against it. No, you would be voting based on your membership's vote. And that's the up or down vote to move forward with the legislation. And in the book, I actually have a piece of legislation written out that I did identify those 5 things in reparations that were discussed earlier in terms of a bill that would be submitted by our black politicians, not to stay in some committee, similar to what Congressman Conyers' bill did, but an up or down vote on whether this is going to be moved forward or not. The House of Representatives would have an opportunity to vote. The Senate, it would go to the president for his signature, and then it would be challenged by us at the Supreme Court. And the question is, why would you challenge it at the Supreme Court? Well, it's going to be challenged anyway. You will have that. So we might as well do it. It doesn't serve anyone to have that type of long, drawn-out process. At any stage, if this is voted down or rejected or vetoed at any level or struck down by the Supreme Court, the dual process that I talked about at the beginning is that self-empowerment plan. So using the same core concept, we can pool our resources and begin to implement this type of strategy, because reparations or our self-empowerment should not end just because either Congress or a president or a senator decides that they don't want that to happen. We have enough challenges in our community, and we're looking for solutions. And this is just one option for that. And so I wanted to present it as a strategy, but a dual plan for us to move forward so that we can begin to take care of ourselves. And there's enough room for leadership and work in all of those areas that you are passionate about, but also identifying our young folks. Let them know we need 100,000 new teachers, or we need 200,000 teachers, or we need a new 100,000 physicians. And so a part of this process with the Education Institute, we will identify those folks who say or self-identify, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a farmer, or I want to be an engineer. And we will track them through this process because it is in our best interest to have them become that which they want to become and that which they are gifted at becoming. So you have a process that nurtures them through this whole process, and then will actually give them an opportunity to see and experience what it's like to be an engineer in manufacturing. And if we will something to happen, then we're going to have it happen. And it is through collaboration and communication. So the challenge is to have our leadership think creatively, look for opportunities, and come together so that we can will something to happen within our community. And we don't always have to rely solely on politicians to do it. Politicians have a special place because they control those tax dollars. So you want some of them connected and at the table trying to support what community wants to do. So, and share with some others who are engaged in this struggle for reparations and community empowerment, particularly for Black African Americans. And that's where my heart is, because that's what I am. But I am also looking out towards a larger community, because as we grow, we realize that we have some of the same challenges other communities have, and we are human beings in this planet. And it is through our collective aspirations. We all want our kids to be educated. We all want an opportunity to pursue our dreams. We all want an opportunity to live a lifestyle that gives us that freedom to do those things we think we need to do based on our own initiatives, based on our beliefs, based on our culture, our values. We don't have to be at odds. But for me, starting from where I am, when you look at where the greatest need is, it is in our community. And so you can't talk about cleaning up someone else's home if you haven't put an effort into trying to solve some of the problems in your own community. And that's that merging of social work and those kinds of principles with economic development, with innovation, and just understanding our humanity. So I thank you for your support and coming out today and